The reeling Guardians stopped their losing streak on Tuesday night. In the process, their division lead expanded to 5 games, which is the most in the American League. And oh, by the way, they're tied for the best record in the American League. If that's not an endorsement to buy, I don't know what is.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Shout out to everydayer John Fagan, who got the guess right yesterday at what 4.5 was.
Let's see what it is today.
You'll have to see. For those who do not know me, I am Jeff Ellis, the host of Locked On Guardians, and I have been one of the OG hosts here at the network since the inception of it. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout in 24/7 and nationally in terms of the draft and prospects. And before that, I was your second favorite blogger at every Cleveland blog that has existed, will existed, and may exist in a future setting or time or simulation.
You've been to the future already. All right, good for you.
Yes.
We're doing. How many days in a row can we do a Back to the Future reference? I'm Justin Latta.
We're going back in time. Oh, sorry.
Back in time. What was the other song there? I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007, so I've seen some bad prospects. I've seen some good prospects. I've seen a lot traded. It's all okay. We'll talk about that. But I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since then, and you've read me at Guardians Baseball Insider, the News Herald, the Morning Journal, Prospects Live. You've heard me here, and we did have a commenter yesterday talk about our intros. Look, guys, the network tells us to introduce ourselves each show because it could be someone's first show. They might want to know why these two guys are qualified to talk about any of this stuff. So we do it every show
for it.
Yes,
in the past
we got poor grades for not doing it, so we're doing it so we get good grades. Help us get good grades. I was not a good student in school, so I need these good grades to make up for my past selves. Good grades. All right, today's show, Guardians stopped the losing streak at 3 games. We'll talk about why that's important. We'll talk about some good signs for the offense. We'll talk about some complicated things about John Kenzie Noel. Body language, what in the heck is going on with Brian Rokia? We'll talk about Emmanuel Clase's surging win save totals. And we want to get into some more prospect stuff. So we're hoping to get into some pitching prospect risers and fallers and trade value. We also want to talk at some point about when other draft picks besides Travis Bazzano will debut. We might not get that today, but we'll do our best. So first, Jeff, the Guardians stopped the losing streak at 3. Guardians, I believe, are one of 4 teams in baseball, I want to say. I'd have to go look it up again. I heard it. 3. They're one of 3 teams in baseball that have not lost 4 in a row all year. And that's impressive to me for one reason specifically, because, you know, the one old adage is your momentum is the next day's starting pitcher. Well, the Guardians starting pitcher the next day is not momentous at all. It's horrendous most days. Curry was solid. We'll talk about that.
It was a solid performance, yeah.
It was, but you know, the Guardians, the best way to stop a losing streak is to have a ace go out there and shut the other offense down. The Guardians have not really had that most of the year. Tanner Bybee's done that, and he'll pitch tomorrow, which is good, or today as you're listening to this. So that's great. He's done his part there. But for a team that's not had good starting pitching most of the year, for them not to fall more than 4 times in a row in a season is pretty darn impressive. And I think it also speaks to the resolve, and it speaks to just how good they've been so far this year, but also just the ability of the leadership. I mean, you heard Austin Hedges' comments on Monday night after the loss about, you know, these guys are aware of what's going on. They're talking about it, and, you know, screaming and yelling doesn't really do anything about it. We're going to talk a little about body language, but that's a really impressive thing to me that they haven't lost more than 3 in a row, because the 2016, I combine those words, 2016 team did that. They did not lose 4 in a row. And that team had great starting pitching. So not saying the two things are correlated, but it's definitely a good sign when you can stop the bleeding very quickly.
No, I agree. And trying to think back to which year was it where they did this the whole year? Did you just say that? I'm sorry. I was getting together.
2016, they didn't lose 3 in a row. And they didn't lose 4 in a row.
You know, last year, I'll go back to the opposite of it, which was this team only had 2 sweeps the whole year. They only won 3 games in a row, like twice. Of course, one of them was against the Texas Rangers because baseball is weird. So yeah, it's a very positive thing. It's nice that they always, and listen, both teams were not on their best foot in this one in terms of pitching, but I mean, it felt like Cleveland was reeling. Everyone was like, season's over. Let's just burn it to the ground. Let's trade everyone. Our comments were very, and I appreciate the comments always. I appreciate everyone in there, except for the 28 people who've been blocked so far and counting for being, listen, follow a simple rule, like be kind, be excellent to each other. That's
Don't
pretty
be
much
a bad
the rule.
boy or girl.
So, but yeah, it's, in the comments, a lot of people talked about like body language and stuff like that. And I do want to address it just ever so slightly here. It's like, I think Josh Naylor just wears everything on his sleeve. And Josh Naylor, unfortunately, he had that stretch a year ago at this time where the, in terms of like his data showed he should be performing better than he was in May of a year ago when he was terrible. And I think he's feeling that right now. Like he feels like he's doing the right things and it's not always matching up. So I think he's a guy who you want to play poker against. Let's put it that way. I think he cannot. So I don't think, anything other than I think he's frustrated. I think especially coming out of the All-Star break, he wanted to show that he deserved that. And in this game, a lot of guys did show up and talk about the positives. Like I got to eat some crow. Like, I never thought Stephen Kwan would be a potential 20 home run guy. Like, good on him. Good on, the coaching staff for working with him and everything. And something else I want to say is like, listen, John Kenzie Noel has a 48% whiff rate. I don't know.
Chase. Yeah.
Chase. I'm sorry. Chase rate. You're right. I misspoke. But like, I don't know how that's going to work. But what I know right now is it is working. So let's squeeze every ounce of value, play him every day until the league figures, oh, we never have to throw this guy a strike for the rest of his natural born life. And then, then things might shift. But he is right now, if he's going to, if he makes contact, it goes far. Ball go far. Ball go real far. But it's just a matter of making contact and teams being smart enough to never throw that guy any, throw it at the bottom of the zone, just out of the zone. But guys will miss and then he'll punish them. So I just feel like that's someone who maybe needs to play more. And I know Jose also showed some frustration in this one, but he also had a home run, which was nice to see. So I think there's a lot of positives. Hopefully we'll see some guys get the ball rolling. They're having their first struggles. And what did it take for their struggles? It took them to, losing 2/5 of the rotation, mostly because they're ineffective, and the entire offense to fall asleep at the wheel at the same time, which I think is another reason why like we should be positive and excited. This team is on their way to, again, having the best record in the American League at the end of the night, gaining ground in the division. And that's after a month of the entire offense falling asleep and having their struggles, and the pitching staff having massive overhauls, changes, and issues. So I'm going to continue to just stay even keeled and point out like a year ago, we said bad teams find ways to lose, good teams find ways to win. A year ago, they were a bad team. They found ways to lose around every corner. This time, they're patient. That like a year ago, when Gaddis makes that terrible throw to first, that would have blown up the whole inning. Like not only would that have made a 1-run game, somehow things would have piled up from there and they wouldn't have got out of it. They did. And Clase came in and had, became, number 2, broke the tie for all time in saves. And it was a clean inning for the most part. Like Scott Barlow struggled. It was clean. Like things did not spiral as like a snowball. That's the word I was looking for, but spiral works as well. A year ago.
Right. Yeah. For all the griping and look, you can't sit there and say that things are perfect. We know things aren't perfect. The Guardians know things aren't perfect. So we're not sitting here. It's funny because we get, we've been accused of being negative. We're accused of being shills. So I feel like we're in the right direction on that because we're accused of being both sides of that.
Agreed.
I think you can like for the offensive sake, I think both things can be possible. I think we let social media sometimes turn us into this either for me or against me, or you're either my either with me or you're my enemy, whatever. Like we could say like Matt Waldron, good pitcher. They struggled against him. Dylan Cease, great pitcher, struggled against him. Michael King, really good pitcher, struggled against him. Tariq Skubal, really, really good pitcher, struggled against him. And you could say we ran into 4 really good arms in a row, which is true. And you can also say the offense has struggled. I think both things are possible because we've seen this team hit good pitching during the year at points too. It isn't like every time this team faces an ace, they suddenly go into a hole and they can't do anything. Like they've beaten, the Mariners have 4 or 5 aces. They've beaten a couple of those guys up. They've hit some of the better pitchers in the league at points this year. They did go into a funk right now. And then it did take, 6 or 7 guys for them to do it. And they're probably not all the way back out of it. There's a very good chance that they're still going to continue to hit some bumps in the road over the next few weeks until some guys get it back on track. Because, unless you're a future Hall of Famer, you're pretty much going to have highs and lows. Even future Hall of Famers have those highs and lows, but it's important to avoid those highs and lows as much as you can, which is a lot harder to do with a good team. But at the end of the day, this isn't the BCS, for college football fans. There's no style points. Nobody cares how you get there. They just care that you get there, that you belong. The Guardians belong. They are tied for the best record in their league. They have the biggest division lead in the American League. That should be a sign that this team is for real because they're 100 games into the season. That doesn't, flukes like that don't happen over that long period of time. There's still a lot of baseball left to be played. So let's not sit here and say that things are hunky-dory and they've got this playoff or this division race locked up, because they don't. But they belong. They are a legitimate contender. And again, nobody cares how you get there. When you're there, you're part of the club. You're in. Once the door closes and you move on to the next room or however analogy you want to use, you're in the circle and you got to fight to stay there. They're there. And that should be, for the fact that this offense took for half the year to struggle all at once, and for the rotation to be as bad as it's been, for them to be where they are should be a clear indication to the front office. They have to do something. They have to reward this team. They have to patch holes where they can, because what this team has been able to do, despite their deficiencies, despite the makeup of their roster, which isn't bad, it's just littered with very young players. That should be a sign this team should be rewarded with help to get them to the postseason and give them a chance to do something really fun. We'll talk more about that here on the other side.
But first, let's talk about our good friends over at booking.com. As you know, let's have some fun. Say it with me. Booking.yeah. With summer heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you secretly always wanted to learn more about. Like Juneau, Alaska. They got a baseball team, right? Honolulu, Hawaii. There's got to be baseball there. Yes, we're talking about even your rival city. We're going to send you to Detroit. Write in the comments if you get that reference. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. Justin's talked about how this helped bail him out when he was going to the Hall of Fame. What I like with this idea of booking.com is it's everything all in one. You can find everything you need. Don't have to go to multiple sites. Don't have to sit there and be like, okay, I got my plane travel here. I got my accommodations. You're going to be able to roll multiple things in. They're going to help you with all the travel points. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on booking.com, on the site, or in the booking.com app. And let's talk about Prize Picks. So yesterday I told you to not take the 7.5 hitter fantasy score for Jose. With his home run, he still may not have gotten there. I'd have to double check. And Stephen Kwan was 6.5. But here's the thing. Since I told you not to take them both yesterday and they both hit home runs, I'm going to say take less on both of them again. And let's see if I can get more home runs out of here. I told you that they're going to underperform and each of those dudes hit a home run. And I do want to point out through Sunday with Olympic basketball, LeBron James is a freebie, more or less. It's half a point. That's a guaranteed win. So you have one that's a guaranteed more or less win right there. They are helping you out. So you just got to go through, pick a few more, complete your board, download the app today, or go to the website and use the promo code LOCKDOWNMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is going to the app, downloading the app, or going to the website and using promo code LOCKDOWNMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Training camp's heating up. You got college football media days all just started up. If you want to get the opinions from the hosts that know your team the most, I didn't plan that. Go check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. It's a 24/7 streaming channel, or you can get on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Again, hosts that know your team the best. They're going to cover it from a local angle. They know the storylines. They know the coaches. They know everything that's going on. They're not at the national level. They're not going to ignore your team. They're not going to scream and yell. They're just going to give you local opinions, and they know what you want to hear. So check out those channels, part of the Lockdowns Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking of, okay, quickly, I want to get to John Kensington Noel here. Your point before about ride it out while you can. And that's not to sit there and say we're being negative on Noel. You and people, I think anybody who's listened to the show for any certain chunk of time knows that Noel is not super high on our list because chase rates like this at this major league level are very hard to get away with. Now, there are unicorns like Salvador Perez, who has a chase rate of 47%. Noel's at 48%, by the way. You've got, Cedane Rafaela right now, and Yainer Diaz, who's making it work, and all those guys. It's rare. It can work. So, we can't sit here and say it's not going to work for Noel, but he's the kind of hitter the Guardians absolutely need to work out because if you throw him a strike, like Jeff said, if you throw him a strike, ball go far. Like, there's no reason for any pitcher to throw him a strike. He will get himself out. He will swing out of the zone. We've seen almost every night. He will swing at bad pitches. If he gets himself into an advantageous count, even once or twice a game, let's say he gets to a 2-0 count or a 3-1 count once or twice a game, you're likely to get some sort of extra base hit. Like, that's what's going to happen. And that can be enough. The thing is, I think the Guardians need someone more consistent who can do it in the 5 spot behind Josh Naylor. We've talked about how the Guardians need a true number 5 hitter because it takes some more pressure off Josh Naylor, who clearly is feeling the weight of some pressure right now. He's struggling. Even Jose Ramirez, because Jose Ramirez is just a different cat. He had a home run tonight and a double, and he slammed his bat and broke it in his last at bat, which is something Jose almost never does. Yeah. Now, granted, he had some very poor strike calls against him, which is another story altogether, because I'm getting super tired of some of these umpires. But
robot umps now.
I've never thought I'd embrace our robot overlords, but in some cases, I am. But you need someone behind those two guys consistently to make them pay, to pull the Tim Misney. And right now it's Noel, and it's absolutely imperative for them to ride that out while it works, because once or twice a game, he might get into a count where it's advantageous and he can hit the heck out of the ball. That's what they need. They just need someone to do it consistently. I don't know if Noel's the right guy hitting the 5th spot, but right now it works for him. Let's move on to Brian Rokia real quick. You and I talked yesterday on the show about it was time to not move on, but replace him for the rest of the season. Move Jimenez over, and there was all sorts of really weird things going on. Like, Paul Hoynes was reporting that he cleared his locker out after the game, and even our buddy Zach Meisel was talking over on the Selvius Godcast about how things were going on too. Not sent down. Nobody knows what happened, and this is one of those things I don't want to speculate on. Because
weird.
We're not in the locker room. We're not around the players. Nobody else publicly is commenting on it, so I'm going to assume they either don't want to or they don't know either, so they're going to stay away from it. We'll see what more comes out of it, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. But it was a very weird situation. We thought it was going to happen and be very close, and then all the guys in the Columbus lineup who would have replaced him were there. So who really knows? We talked a little bit about body language already. I will say again, I think a lot of that is confirmation bias too. I think when things are going bad, I said it yesterday, you're just looking for ways to confirm how you're feeling. We all do that, whether it's baseball or anything else. We all look ways for that.
Yep. 100%.
Jeff, the other thing I saw in line too that we think we should address too is, Curry started this game and he was pretty solid. The Guardians were very smart for pulling him when they did, because they said he hadn't really been stretched out in a while because of the break and because he was serving as a reliever before the break, and because really he's a 5 and fly guy. He's a guy you don't want to push too deep. You don't want to do a third time through with him. So the Guardians made the absolute right move. They went to Cade Smith. By the way, I just want to say too, Cade Smith, 22 pitches to get 5 outs. That's fantastic efficiency to get 5 outs and 22 pitches. And he struck out 3 batters. So that's 9 strikes itself right there. That's really impressive. So that really helps. But great move on Curry. But the reason Curry is starting this game, you saw Logan Allen pitch for Columbus on
Does that count as pitching?
He did go longer than Curry. However, the outing wasn't all that great. He needed 83 pitches to get 5 1/3. It's about the long term with Allen. Like, this team needs Logan Allen up at the end of the year down the stretch being the best version of Logan Allen. The same way they need Tristan McKenzie to be the best version of himself, but that's looking even more dire because he walked 7 his last start. But this start, Curry being here, I know people are going to say, well, that's risky because they could have lost this game, and it would have been a fourth loss in a row. But Curry pitched good. Curry competes for a guy who doesn't miss a lot of bats. He throws a lot of strikes and he tries to get weak contact. It's a good thing to do 2 times through the order. But this was more about Logan Allen trying to right the ship, which doesn't look like he really did, but we'll see. But this is it was a long-term move. They're trying to get Logan Allen back to the best version of himself because come late August and September, they're going to need Logan Allen back to being the best version of himself. So I know people are going to say, again, this could have been a bad short-term move, but, we're trying to see the long-term picture here. That's what's going on.
Yeah, and what other choices do you have? Like, sometimes you just got to, take the best of a bad situation. Like there was not a great choice and they had to. Curry is the guy who's done that this year for them. And a year ago, he was not bad in that role. Let's also remember that. Like he's got the only guy with kind of some extended experience.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't going to call up Joey Cantillo, and this still keeps Logan Allen on the same day as Curry, so this spot remains open. So we'll see what happens next time through. I would imagine Allen's going to get in there starting AAA because he's still got stuff to work on at this point, but it keeps them lined up on the same day. I would probably look, the next time that the spot opens up is Sunday against the Phillies. That could be really devastating for Curry. Because that's a home run ballpark. He's a fly ball pitcher, and the Phillies offense is really good, even though they just did the Guardians a solid on Tuesday by beating the Twins. So we'll see what happens. They haven't announced the starter that far in advance, so we'll see what happens there. But it is, and who knows, maybe they'll make a trade by Sunday. I'm not holding my breath, at least that early, but we can see what happens here. All right, Manuel Clase, as Jeff said, is moving up the save charts in Cleveland. We'll talk a little about that. We'll also talk about prospect pitchers again in the minors, the rising and falling. And if we have time today, we'll get into one other draft picks not named Travis Bassana and when we think they will debut. So stick around for more of that. But first, if you are looking, maybe you're taking a last minute trip to Philadelphia this weekend when the Guardians play there. I've heard it's a nice ballpark. It's always a good atmosphere in the playoffs. This is 2 good teams going at it. The Phillies are the best in the National League. The Guardians are the best in the American League. Might be a hot ticket. If you are trying to get tickets to that game and you want to head there, use the Game Time app. It is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And the prices on Game Time go down as it gets closer to first pitch. So maybe you want to live by the seat of your pants and you want to wait until Sunday to get those tickets for Xzavion Curry versus Aaron Nola. I don't know. If that's someone, if you are someone like that, use the app. You could get flash deals at the last minute. Again, we know the prices go down at the end and you get all in pricing. So when you do put tickets in your shopping cart, when you get to checkout, there's no surprise fees. If the ticket says $60 at before checkout, it's going to say 60 after. No surprises. That's always a good thing. And you're also covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry as well. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with the Game Time app. Download the app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Guardians will do battle again with the Tigers on Wednesday at 6:40. It'll be Tanner Bybee and Jack Flaherty. Check out that action on the SiriusXM app for the hometown call. Just search Guardians for that one. Clase is only 9 saves away from tying Cody Allen for the all-time record in Cleveland for saves. He'll get there by the end of the year. It's really hard to believe. I think Jay Jaffe or Jason Stark the other day wrote about his Hall of Fame trajectory, and he is on a path, I will say. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. Cleveland hasn't had I don't think does Cleveland have a Hall of Fame reliever? They don't, do they?
No, a lot of guys who started
Dennis Eckersley's
he was a starter his whole time in Cleveland. He was never relief came later.
He went in as athletic, right?
Jim Kern was really good, I want to say. And then, it's like relief has been such a recent thing. And a lot of Cleveland guys honestly just haven't had the stamina. It's been short spurts for them.
Yeah, Clase is going strong. So that's a lot of fun. All right. We talked a little bit about hitters yesterday in terms of prospect risers and fallers. Not really in depth like we wanted to, but today we can get to some pitching stuff. Andrew Walters had a good outing. I want to mention that. Yeah, he's been on a good stretch recently, so hopefully he can come up in August and still be a part of this, because I still think Nick Sandlin's struggling, so they could still use a reliever in that spot. And Also, would not mind Joey Cantillo in that spot as a reliever, by the way, as a long reliever. I know the walks are a concern, but maybe if you just throw him in the bullpen and let him go all out for 2 innings or 3 innings, he can iron some things out. I would say, Jeff, the biggest riser this year in terms of pitching prospects so far, I know a lot of people are going to want Tugboat, but it's Austin Peterson.
That's who I was going to say as well.
Austin Peterson, he has 10 walks in 108 innings. Hitters, we'll see what happens against AAA, because hitters in the minors, not great. The ball changes at AAA, which I don't understand either. But this is a guy who did miss bats in college, and then he didn't miss bats last year at low A. So I kind of fell off on him, because I was like, if you're 24 and you're not 23 and not striking out dudes at low A, it's not a good sign. But he's rebounding in a big way this year, and he's got extension on the fastball. He gets to 93, 94.
And that extension makes it more like 97. It really plays that up. Because his extension is as good as it gets in the minors.
I'll be curious to see what happens with the home runs for him at the next level at AAA, because he's only allowed 4. Home run prevention is a lot easier at the lower levels, like Will Dion, and I really do like Will Dion. I still think there's still something there. I think he's got to figure how to make his game work best at the AAA level still. And for all his struggles, by the way, Will Dion still averages a strikeout per inning in the minors, but Will Dion did not give up home runs last year, and with his stuff, Peterson's not now. So I want to see what he does against AAA, but I would say, like, the pitching factory, I know, Espino has no value at this point, and Cantillo's having a hard time with control. So I don't think the value is necessarily great there, and they can't even really afford to trade him. But you've had good developments this year from Peterson. Ryan Webb, it's taken him a little bit longer than we would have liked, but he's taken some steps forward this year. Parker Messick continues to be solid. I think he is still settling in as that 4 or 5 starter type that we thought he was going to be. Doug Nikhazy has taken steps forward this year. The walks aren't as bad as they once were. I don't know if the ceiling is anything more than a 5th starter. But at least now he is more of a viable 5th starter versus a reliever before. And then way down below, you've got Alex Clemmie, who's got control issues, but he has curtailed some of the walks recently. It's going to take some time for him to iron that out. It wasn't going to happen in one season. There is Tugboat. And then you've also got Jacob Persanahan, a lefty, who has been the best starter in the ACL, who, again, doesn't walk anybody. So you have had some good pitching developments, and you're going to add all these rookie or these high school arms to this list next year. So it's interesting. And the pitching factory is not dry. It's just a little bumpier than normal.
People love when I interrupt you, but I just want to head off before we deal with the anger about Tugboat. Tugboat is fantastic. Tugboat is definitely a top 20 prospect-ish, top 25. He is a player who he has a lot in common with Will Dion, right? Like, kind of in regards of like kind of average fastball. It's more the secondaries, and those guys eat up lower levels. He's moving at a good rate. He has a fantastic find. He has the best nickname in the minors. Anyone who's putting him in a top 100 prospect thing, just don't follow them. Like that's a sure sign that all they're doing is setting a scout line, and they're not looking at pitches. They're not looking at what a player does. They're not looking at age. And there's some big sources of places, or I don't even know if they're big, but I see people retweeting them often. Tugboat is a fantastic prospect. He's really interesting. And again, he's a guy who started to slim down already. I would not be surprised if, as he continues to get stronger and slimmer, because it's what it's going to take if he adds more and becomes an elite level I don't know. Let's pull back on the elite. Becomes a very good prospect. I don't like to put the elite tag on anyone, so that was really an overshoot by me. And then I also want to throw out a name of a guy that, I was like, oh, we had a debate, the discussion yesterday, and I think it's just worth pointing out, like, Magnus Ellerts is a guy who the walk rate not great, but that dude has missed an obscene amount of bats so far in his minor league career and is getting up to AA. For
good first AA outing, by the way, too.
Yeah, and an 11th round pick. We know guys they take in the 11th round are extremely targeted. You always want to look at their 11th round pick. That is historically for Cleveland been something that they spend a lot of effort, time, and research on. That pick, they probably spend more time on their 11th rounder than they do like their 8th, 9th, and 10th. And he is such a Cleveland pick, 6'5". I don't know this. You can probably answer if he has great extension, but I'm betting it's probably pretty decent.
Yeah, not bad.
And then,
he's tall, he's lanky.
And then his schools, ready? He went to 3 different colleges. What a
They
Cleveland
do
thing.
love that, don't they?
They love that
Magnus
because it's a sign of
Zane
underdevelopment.
Morehouse.
Yeah, it's a sign of underdevelopment. Go back to who was the guy who I originally failed that on? Oh, who's the pitcher from UC Irvine who got up to Double A? It was really awesome in High A. It's gonna drive me nuts.
I don't know either. How long ago are we talking here? I need a clue.
In the last decade.
Well, Trenton Denholm went to UC Irvine, right? That's
no, yeah, it's not him.
Because he was there all 3 years.
Wasn't that like Matt something?
Oh, are we talking about the guy that we both flubbed on
Yeah.
in terms of the prospect we thought was going to be good? Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
It's gonna drive me nuts.
I can't think of his last name either. Yeah, he looked like he was an undeveloped pitcher.
Yeah,
and he finally had some success.
Esparza, Matt Esparza.
Yeah, Matt Esparza was a guy that looked like he was underdeveloped, and he just kind of hit a wall at Double A, and that was the end. He had some injuries too, but they do seem to like the other development there. They do. Who's the guy they took this year? It was
day 3.
Was it Sean Matson?
No, Cam Schulke. No. Cam Schulke had bounced.
Yeah, Cam Schulke has been at 3 colleges, and Franco Aleman was at 3 different colleges as well. So they do like that. Was Franco Aleman an 11th round pick? Because that would make me laugh if he was.
I want to say he was day 2. I want to say he was day 2, like 8th or 9th round.
Franco Aleman was a 10th round pick, so he was day 2, but the very end, so close enough.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
Alman's been on the injured list, unfortunately.
He has been for a while, but yeah, there's we talked about that. Like Clemmy, as you mentioned, has some positive signs. Bresnahan, and then we just like to see guys get healthy. Like
DeLucia's healthy. DeLucia's interesting.
I know he is, but it's like before we sit here and I've seen people call it the demise of the pitching factory. The injuries have been the killer, and I'm not just talking about the ones we talk about all the time, like Espino and like Williams this year, but DeLucia is pitching for the first time since they drafted him. Justin Campbell Justin Campbell and Jacob Zibin have never thrown a pitch for the organization, and those were high paid guys. Zibin got $1 million in the 10th round. That makes him the equivalent of like a 3rd rounder. Campbell was a 1st rounder, a comp round, but still a 1st rounder. We talked about someone who was recently released. And I know sometimes his family listen to the show. I would like to get confirmation that the Giovanni Rivera is the really interesting pitcher who never pitched for the org that they paid over slot that they released. Mm-hmm. Big, strong guy. Looked like he could have been a wrestler. That's why I was kind of shocked to see him on the release list, if that's the guy that I think it is. But injuries, like health up and down the minors, have been part of the reason that pitching factory has gotten a little quiet. But there are guys stepping up and showing, and we talked about, I know people will ask about Mace and others, but they haven't they're not really on our radar as much.
Yeah, same with Davenport as well. And then you and I both like Trenton Denholm, but he's not.
He should just be a reliever.
But there have been good developments this year from the pitching factory, and some of these guys could get traded. I mean, Peterson and Webb, Messick, all could be trade candidates in the next week or so. So, keep an eye on those guys, because you're adding even Clemmy. I think if Clemmy has any value, they could flip him too, because they just added a large pool.
4 arms.
And you really don't want to have too many high school pitchers in the system. And we'll talk about where they're going to debut, hopefully sometime this week. We want to keep getting to that. We haven't, but we'll talk about where other draft prospects will debut. Bybee versus Flaherty today. Hopefully the Guardians can keep the ship in the right direction. Again, best record in the American League, the highest division lead in the American League.
And you're putting your ace on the mound. I know we talked about sinkers. The weird thing is, like, the sinkers are, I mean, I guess it'd be like Jack Leftwich. Maybe I don't want to spend too much time on the negative, but it's mostly been guys stepping forward. We have not had a lot of negatives, but I think there hasn't been a lot of negatives because honestly, there was not a lot of pitchers in their ranks, which is why they went so heavy on pitchers.
That's true. Yeah. So a lot of good stuff there. We'll dive into more prospects this week. Draft pick debuts, promotions, and maybe we'll throw out a mailbag depending on how things look towards the end of the week. So look forward to that tomorrow and the rest of the week.
Thank you all for reading and reviewing, downloading, doing all the part as we ask every time. Make sure you're slamming that like, thumbs up button, all that, whatever I'm supposed to say. And again, thank you all, and go Guardians, go.